Hello, my name is Khanh. Today I will read the story The Little Princess. Chapter 4 Ramdas and the Monkey. Every morning when Sarah gave the birds their bread, she looked across to the attic window next door, but nobody opened it. Nobody called out "Good morning" across the roof or gave Sarah a friendly smile. Perhaps the Indian gentleman's servants all sleep downstairs, she thought sadly. Her life was very lonely now. She saw Becky every day, of course, but they did not have much time for talking. The cook and the other servants were not friendly. Sometimes, at night, Ermengarde came up to Sarah's room, but it was not easy for her to come often. Then, one evening, Sarah was in her attic when she heard a noise on the roof. She looked up, and there at the open window was a small monkey. "Oh, you dear little thing," cried Sarah. At one, at once, the monkeys jumped down and started to run round the room. Sarah laughed. She got up on the table and looked out of her window, and at the next window she saw a face, the smiling face of an Indian lascar. "Oh," cried Sarah, "have you got a monkey? He's in my room." The lascar's name was Ramdas, and yes, it was his monkey. He gave Sarah a big smile. "I'm very sorry," he said. "Can I come and get him?" "Oh yes, please," said Sarah. "I think he's scared of me, and he runs so fast, but you can get across the roof." Yes, Ramdas could, and a minute later he was at Sarah's window. Soon the monkey jumped into his arms, and Ramdas thanked Sarah again and again. When he went away, across the roof, back into the house next door, Sarah went to the shops 5 or 6 times a day, and when she walked past the house next door, she thought about the Indian gentleman. She was sorry for him. He had no wife or family, and the doctor visited the house every day. Mr. Carmichael, the lawyer, visited too, and sometimes the Carmichael children went with him. Sarah was happy about that. "It's nice to see friendly face when you are ill," she thought. The Indian gentleman thought that too. He liked children very much, but he was a very unhappy man. Mr. Carmichael was his friend, and he talked to him a lot, but they talked about only one thing. "I must find the child," said the Indian gentleman. His name was Mr. Carrisford. "I must find her and take care of her. But where is she? Here I am, with all this money from the diamond mines, and half of it is rough crew's money. Oh, Carmichael, why did I leave my friend and run away when things looked bad? Why?" "You ran away because you were ill with a fever," said Mr. Carmichael. It nearly killed you, remember?" "And it did kill poor Ralph," said Mr. Carrisford. "He put all his money into the mines because I was his friend. but at first we didn't find any diamonds, and as Rob's money was gone, I was too afraid to tell him, so I ran away. And later, we did find diamonds. Rob was dead. He laughed angrily. What a brave friend I was. It's not easy to be brave, Mr. Carmichael said quietly, when you are ill with a fever. Mr. Carriford looked into the fire. Ramdass tells me, he said, about a little servant girl next door. The monkey ran away, and Ramdass went across the roof to get him from her room. The poor child slept in a cold, dirty attic and worked about 16 hours a day. It Rob's daughter living like that. I can't stop thinking about it. We are going to find her one day, said Mr. Carmichael. But how? Said Mr. Carrisford. He put his head in his hand. I've never seen her. I don't know her name. Ralph always called her his Mr. Mrs. We talk all the time about the mines. He never told me the name of her school. Her mother was French, so did he take her to a school in France, or was it in England? Well, we know there was a child at the school in Paris, said Mr. Carmichael, with the name of Carol or Crew. Her father died suddenly, and a Russian family took her away with them because she was a friend of their daughter. Perhaps this girl is Ralph Crow's child. Next week, I'm going to Moscow to look for her. I want to go with you, but I'm not well, said Mr. Carrisford. I must find her, Carmichael. I must. Every night I dream I see Ralph Crow's face, and he says, Tom, Tom, where is my little missus? And I have no answer for him. Mr. Carrisford took his friend's hand. Help me to find her. Help me. Winter came, with its short, dark days, and the attic rooms were very cold. There were no fires or servant girls, and often Sarah and Becky could not sleep because of the cold. Sarah was tall enough, and her old black dress was very short. Her shoes were old, and she had no warm coat for the winter weather. She was thin, too. She did not get very much to eat, and she was always hungry. She carried big bags of shopping through the rain and the snow. One day, she found a sixpence in the snow, and she bought some hot bread with it. Then she saw a child by the door of the shop. The child had no shoes and no coat, and her thin face was blue with cold. She is hungrier than I am, thought Sarah, and she gave her hot bread to the child. When she got back to the school, Miss Minchin was angry. Cook is waiting for you, Sarah. Why are you late? I can't walk quickly through the snow, said Sarah. My shoes are old, Miss Minchin, and my feet get very cold. Miss Minchin did not like to hear this. Don't speak to me like that, she said. I am kind to you. I'm giving you a home, but you never say thank you to me. Sarah looked at her. You're not kind, she said quietly, and this is not a home. Go to your room at once, said Miss Minchin. On the stairs, Sarah met Lavinia. Lavinia looked at her and gave a little laugh. "Oh, here's Princess Sarah," she said, in her old dress and her dirty shoes. In the attic, Sarah sat down on the chair with her table. "I must be brave," she whispered. "A princess is always brave, so I must be too. But it's not easy." She put her head down on her arms. "Oh, father, do you remember your little missus? Can you see me now?" And in the house next door, Mr. Carrisford sat by a warm fire. Moscow is a long way from London, and he could only wait. But he thought that about Ralph Crew's child every day. He thought about other children too. "Ramdas," he said, "how is that poor little servant girl next door? Can we do something for her?" "I see her in the street every day," said Ramdas. "In the rain, in the snow. She looks thin and hungry, but we can help her. I can easily get in through her attic window. Listen." And he talked for some minutes. Mr. Carrisford smiled. "Yes," he said to Ramdas. "Yes, I like it. Let's do it." Chapter 5. Am I dreaming? One night, a week later, Ermengarde got out of bed quietly and went upstairs to the attic. Sarah was not there, so Ermengarde sat on the bed and waited. At 10 o'clock, Sarah came slowly up the stairs and into the room. Ermengarde looked at her. "Oh, Sarah!" she cried. "Are you ill? Your face is white, and you look so tired." "It was a hard day, Ermi," said Sarah. She sat down. Miss Minchin was angry with Cook. Then Cook was angry with us. Becky and I had no dinner and no tea. "Does that happen often?" said Ermengarde unhappily. "You never told me. Are you hungry now?" Sarah looked at her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I am. I would like to eat that table. I would like to eat you." Ermengarde jumped up. "Sarah," she cried, "I had a box of things from home today. There's a big cake in it. I'm going to get it now. You and Becky can eat it all." Soon, Ermengarde was back. The three girls sat on Sarah's bed, and there was some happy smile when Ermengarde opened her box and took out the cake. "Oh, miss, look at that," said Becky. "You are kind, Ermi," said Sarah. She laughed. "When things are very bad, something nice always happens. Here we are, having a party." Ermengarde gave Sarah and Becky some cake, and they started to eat. Suddenly, they stopped. There was a noise of feet on the stairs. They listened. "Oh no," whispered Becky. It's Miss Minchin." "Yes," said Sarah. Her face was white again. Then the door opened and Miss Minchin came in. "So, Lavinia was right," she said angrily. "Tea with Princess Sarah. Becky, get back to your attic at once." "Oh, please, Miss Minchin," cried Ermengarde. "It was my cake from home. We are only having a party." "Go back to your room, Ermengarde," Miss Minchin said coldly, "and take this thing with you. And tomorrow," she looked at Sarah, "there's no breakfast, no dinner, and no tea for you. Remember that." Soon the attic rooms were quiet again. Tired and hungry, the two servant girls went to sleep. But after an hour or two, Sarah opened her eyes. Was it The noise from the window, perhaps. Something is different, Sarah whispered. What is it? She sat up in bed and looked round the room. She looked again and again, and her eyes were very big. The room was different, very different. There was a wonderful hot fire. There were new warm blankets on her bed and beautiful pictures on the wall. Sarah slowly got out of bed. Am I dreaming? She said. Where did all these things come from? She put out her hand to fire. No, it's not a dream. The fire is hot. Can I feel it? I can feel it. And oh, look at the table. There was a red cloth on the table and cups and plates. There was hot tea and wonderful things to eat. Hot meat pies and sandwiches and cake, oranges and apples. Sarah ran to Becky's room. Becky, she whispered, come quickly, come and look. When Becky saw the room, she could not speak at first. Then she said, oh, miss, what is it? How did all these things get here? I don't know, said Sarah. At first, I thought it was a dream, but it isn't. Look, these pies are hot. Let's eat them. Hot meat pies aren't a dream. They sat down by the fire and ate and drank. Oh, those pies were good, miss, Becky said. And the tea and the cake. I don't understand it, but I like it. Sarah looked around the room. Oh, Becky, look, there are some books too. I didn't see them before. She ran to look at them and opened the top book. There's something writing here. Listen, it says, to the little girl in the attic from a friend. Oh, Becky, Sarah closed her book and looked up. I've got a friend, Becky, she said slowly. Someone is my friend. The next morning, Becky met Sarah in the kitchen. Oh, miss, she whispered, what is all the dream last night? The meat pies and the fire and everything. No, it wasn't a dream, Sarah whispered back. I ate some cold meat pie for breakfast, and the fire was still warm. Becky laughed happily. Oh my, she said. Miss Minchin could not understand it. When Sarah came into the schoolroom, she looked happy and well. Miss Minchin wanted to see a white, unhappy face and eyes red of crying. How can that child smile? She thought angrily, but of course she did not know about the hot meat pies. Every evening, when Sarah went up to bed, she found new things in the attic. There were more warm blankets for her and for Becky. There were pictures on the wall, and there were books, new shoes, and a winter coat. And best of all, there was always a fire and a wonderful hot dinner on the table. But where does it all come from? Becky said one night when they sat by the fire. Who does it, miss? A friend does it, Sarah said. A kind, wonderful friend. But he doesn't want us to know his name. They began to look at one of the new books, and then Becky looked up. Oh, miss, she whispered, there's something at the window. What is it? Sarah got up to look. It's the monkey, she said, the monkey from next door. She opened the window and the monkey jumped down into her arm. Oh, you poor little thing, Sarah said. You're so cold. Becky was very interested. I've never seen a monkey before, she said. He's not very beautiful, miss. What are you doing to do with him? It's very late now, said Sarah. He can stay in my room tonight and I can take him to his home in the morning. Chapter 6 Lost and Found. The next morning, the first visitor to the house next door was Mr. Carmichael, back from Russia. But when he came into the house, his face was sad. Mr. Carrisford knew the answer at once. You didn't find her, he said. I found her, Mr. Carmichael said, but it was the wrong girl. Her name is Emily Carroll, and she's much younger than Rob Crew's daughter. I'm very sorry. We must start again, said Mr. Carriford unhappily. But where? It's 2 years now. 2 years. Well, she isn't at a school in Paris. We know that, Mr. Carmichael said. Let's look at schools in England now. Yes, said Mr. Carriford. Yes, we can start in London. There's a school next door, Carmichael. At that moment, Ramdas came quietly into the room. The little servant girl from the attic is here, he said to Mr. Carriford. With the monkey, he ran away again last night to her room. Would you like to see her? Yes, said Mr. Carriford. Yes, I would. Bring her in. And so Sarah came into the room and stood in front of the Indian gentleman. She smiled at him. Your monkey came to my room last night, she said, and I took him in because it was so cold. Mr. Carrisford watched her face with interest. That was kind of you, he said. Sarah looked at Ramdas by the door. Do you want me to give him to the Lascar? She asked. How do you know he's a Lascar? Said Mr. Carrisford. Oh, I know Lascars, Sarah said. I was born in India. Mr. Carrisford sat up suddenly. In India, he said, but you are a servant at the school next door. Yes, I am now, said Sarah, but I wasn't at first. The Indian gentleman looked at Mr. Carmichael, and then Mr. Carmichael looked at Sarah. What do you mean by at first, child? He asked. When father first took me to the school. Where is your father? Said Mr. Carmichael. He died, said Sarah, very quietly. His friend ran away with all his money, and there wasn't any money for me. There was nobody to take care of me, so Miss Minchin put me in the attic and said I must work for my bread. The Indian gentleman looked at Sarah. What was your father's name? He said, tell me. Sarah looked at him sadly. Rob Crew, she said. He died in India from a fever 2 years ago. Mr. Carrisford's face went very white. Carmichael, he whispered. It is the child. The child. That was an exciting day for many people. At first, poor Sarah did not understand, but Mr. Carmichael talked to her quietly and told her everything. The true story about her father's friends and the diamond mines, in the 2 years of looking for Rob Crew's daughter. And all the time, she said later to Mr. Carrisford, when they sat by his fire, I was in the house next door. Yes, he said, and you are never going back there. Your home is with me now. I'm going to take care of all little misses. Sarah laughed happily, and you were the friend too. All those beautiful things in my attic came from you. You and Ramdas. The Indian gentleman smiled at her. We were sorry for you, he said. Ramdas can move very quietly, and he carried the things across the roof when you were out. I couldn't find Rob's daughter, but I want to help somebody. And then Ramdas told me about this sad little servant girl in the attic next door. And so the story ended up happily for everybody, but not for Miss Minchin. Sarah was very rich now, and Miss Minchin wanted her to come back to the school. She came to see Mr. Carrisford, but he said some very angry things to her, and she went away with a red face. Becky came to live in Mr. Carrisford's house too. She was Sarah's servant, and she was very happy. She had a warm room, nice dresses, and good things to eat every day, and she loved Sarah very much. Ermengarde often came to visit Sarah, and Sarah helped her with her school lessons again. Ermengarde was not clever, but he was a true friend. On that first day in the Indian gentleman's house, Sarah wrote a letter to her, and Ermengarde carried the letter into the schoolroom. There were diamond mines, she told Lavinia and the other girls. There were millions and millions of diamonds in the mines, and half of them are Sarah's, and they were her diamonds all the time when she was cold and hungry in the attic, and she was a princess then, and she's a princess now. Thank you for listening.